Very cool. We're looking at the new Ground Control today. This is the new generation brewer. Really quick preview of this because this will be at SCA Expo, so hopefully this video goes out before then and you can see it with your own eyes if you happen to be at the show.
What is Ground Control, other than a bunch of RGB LEDs in it? But what it is, it's the first new way to brew coffee since, I think Ellie likes to say about it, since espresso was invented or whatnot, or drip coffee and whatnot. So it brews the coffee completely differently than any existing methodology. So we brew the same grinds more than once, which shouldn't work. And I promise you, if you try it with your pour over, it won't taste good. But the key insight on the chemistry side is that we're brewing the same grinds more than once, and we're drying the grinds, or substantially drying the grinds, in between each step. So it's as if each time we're brewing, we're starting from scratch, like time zero. It's like we're hitting the reset button. So whatever's left in the coffee we're starting from time zero on the extraction curves, essentially. So
yeah. And you have a background in chemistry, and you've figured out all of that over however many years,
just a few years,
yeah. But you needed a machine to be able to actually brew coffee in that way, and that's what we have here. One thing that I've always been very interested in and highlighting is the types of things you can do with the Ground Control. I think a lot of people look at Ground Control and they're like, it just makes hot coffee, right? Which it makes freaking amazing hot coffee, but there's a lot of other stuff that I've personally enjoyed, like espresso concentrate, new features that we can talk about too, but just like more stuff that you can do with the machine that just makes really tasty beverages. So, what can you actually do with the Ground Control?
Hot brew, it'll do now cold brew. Specifically, so a gallon worth of cold brew in this guy right here.
Yeah, we'll show that off later.
For sure. And then also it'll do latte concentrate, so a gallon worth of latte concentrate. So anything you're adding milk to, whatever type of milk, it'll make a concentrate for it.
And briefly wanted to talk a little bit about the latte concentrate. It's basically like a really high TDS brew, and you can dump that in milk and it tastes pretty good. Personally, I actually really like that more than regular espresso because it is cleaner.
Sure.
It's brewing at no pressure, and there's no crema. I'm a crema hater, so I don't want any of that bitter. And you just get such a clean, concentrated beverage that you can actually dilute stuff in. You can make lattes in 30 seconds or something. It's really, really fast. You can actually do so much more stuff with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've been kind of seeing, at least here in the Bay Area. We have shops that have really started to tap into a lot of those other capabilities, like making concentrate, making products with a brewer. And I think I've always looked at this, I'm like, wait, no, it's not only just the brewer, guys, it does other stuff. Obviously, this is the new brewer. What has changed?
Sure. Well, a few small things here, but one notable part is the form factor. Now this is only 24 inches tall, and it integrates everything that the Cyclops does. It does here, and it does more. In that, for the concentrates, like the cold brew or the lattes, it can do up to 30 or 40% more,
wow,
even in the smaller package. And then also we built our own carafe, so now this is a modular design. And we incorporated all the functionality here, so that's how we get all the form factor, savings and space and whatnot there.
Nicer touchscreen on this as well, so barista operation's a little bit better. But
sure.
This is much smaller now.
The carafe can just sit here like it is, and we have a ton of preset recipes which you can scroll up and down and pre-bake in, all the things that you want to do for it. It's like a regular brewer in terms of its, actual usability, but then it adds all these additional features and whatnot. So all we do is we pull out the brew basket, we put a paper filter in, grind the coffee, and then we go from there.
All right, well, let's do that, and we can quickly show this off if you haven't seen it. We got the paper filter in there, but a lot of the operation's the same regardless of if you're brewing concentrate, hot coffee, and now cold brew. You're just using a regular grind size for this?
Yes.
Okay, so we got the coffee in there.
We do. Paper filter, ground coffee.
If you just got one of these, of course they'll help you set up the machine and all of that, but there are templated profiles. So if you're just trying to dial in the coffee, give that profile a go.
And we've got a full guide as well.
So the guide, yeah.
Yep. Yep. So you can go as deep as you want, but also it's all preset.
Yeah.
So otherwise, just you can just go with that.
Cold brew. I'm hitting go. Oh wow, look at that.
And now it's mixing the cold in first and then the hot.
Okay.
So that's one of the biggest updates to this the new Ground Control versus the Cyclops.
Yeah, and this here still has that stir on the inside, and then the vacuum and all of that. You can push insanely high extractions with this.
The name of the recipe, which we can name many different things, but at the moment it's the mixing demo because we're demoing it. And then it's telling you that we are currently brewing, and you see the icon, so that way you know it's actively brewing. And then this is a 3-cycle recipe in total, and it's showing you that right now we're on cycle 1, and this is the total brew time. So we're doing a gallon worth of cold brew or a gallon worth of latte concentrate or whatnot within 10 minutes. So, and then this is the temperature that we start at. So that's the water tank temperature. So because we're doing a cold mixing, so it's preset to a different temperature to start. But this is just reading off the water tank temperature.
This machine comes in both 240 and 110? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we actually sell a 30 amp version 220 and a 20 amp 220 version, as well as the regular one.
Okay, so I can have this in my house without unplugging the washer and dryer.
There you go. Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about this carafe, because it is a lot different than before. The original Cyclops, right? You can put the carafe under the top where the coffee comes down. This is now all integrated. Why did you do that, and what can you do with it?
Sure. So you can think of it as all the features and functionality of the top part with the spiral tubes and everything is now integrated as part of this. So that was part of the design feature where we can basically make a full gallon carafe fit into the smaller form factor and have all the features you want.
Yeah.
Because we need a vacuum part, so it needs to be a sealed system. So that's why we can't just use an off-the-shelf carafe. That was part of the Cyclops where we used an off-the-shelf, but then we needed a lot more space to do so. And here we integrate everything. So.
Yeah, but once this finishes brewing, we can go and look at it a little closer. I kind of like the RGBs. I know very divisive things, RGBs on coffee products. I don't know. So like, what was kind of the thought process with the colors?
As part of the Cyclops design, which is to make a show of the coffee, and so that coffee is more accessible, especially when we're doing something very different in terms of the way we're brewing the coffee. That was kind of the idea. So this way it becomes the centerpiece of your cafe and whatnot. And I mean, we'll be able to customize this so it's not just LEDs in your face. But
there we go.
Yeah, so this way you can see the coffee as it's coming in and whatnot. So.
Yeah, so this is that first cycle, and it's going to do 2 more cycles. But
for sure,
if you've seen the top of the Cyclops, you see it comes out the same way. It's quieter than my espresso machine.
So many different optimizations went in on the inside. So.
Yeah, and then if you take a look at this, same type of system before. Water's going to come in, stir is going to go and agitate, and all of that is fully programmable. So you can push coffees insanely hard.
Yeah, we can, and this just comes on and off by magnets now, so it makes it really
magnets.
easy.
Okay,
So,
a lot of crazy upgrades now.
a few small ones. Yeah.
Can I get this in any color now, or are you going to have the customization like before?
We'll definitely have, you can do any artwork you want on it, sort of thing. So we'll definitely, that'll be an easy option for sure.
Yeah, I want one in blue. I'll use it to brew my 3 cups of coffee every day.
There you go.
Yeah, so the second cycle, but set it and forget it.
Yep.
You come back, it's going to be brewed. I definitely think the LEDs and all that can be. You can use it for signaling and tell people about.
Oh, that's completely built in. We'll demonstrate that at SCA. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, maybe we might be able to see that at the show. Is it? Oh, yeah. You can't burn yourself. Cold.
Nope.
Well, it should be cold, right?
No, it's actually triple walled. That's one of the ideas.
Because like right now, what I see people do with the Cyclops is they'll brew like concentrate or cold brew into carafes, move them in big jugs for a pop-up or for an event. Now you can just roll up with these guys.
Yeah,
right?
very true.
Just brew it in here because there's a spout here. So a lot of like really good optimizations if you were looking at it from doing like a small business pop-up event, farmer's market, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, cold brew on demand is a great idea, especially for hot days.
You got to make it super robust for those heavy-duty coffee shops, right?
That's the idea.
I mean, currently there are shops like brewing 24/7, basically, with your Cyclops.
Oh yeah,
It's
500
like-
cups a day, easy. You know.
This is going to be interesting because this can do more coffee and it's a smaller too, which is it's like double good.
Exactly. So you might as well have 2 or 3 side to side.
Yeah, hey, if you want to pick one up, tell them I sent you. If you pick one up. Done brewing. So this is the new cold brew. It definitely looks like cold brew. But let's give it a taste. It's like drinking chocolate milk. This is really sweet. What's interesting about this cup right now? Well, let me give it another taste. This doesn't have any of that like oxidized taste. You know, if you brewed something like in a toddy, you run into this issue of oxidation.
Sure.
Because of like the really long brew time, and if you're like trying to control stuff, this doesn't have any of that. So this is just like that really comforting cold brew flavor profile. Like it's sweet, it's round, it's smooth. Doesn't have any of the offensiveness of like a really high concentration brew, even though this is like, I don't know if you guys can see this on camera, but like this is insanely high concentration. Like I don't even need to measure this to be like, look at how dark that is. And I'm not tasting any of like off flavors from this type of concentration. That's quite amazing. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, it does look like chocolate milk, and I am drinking this, and like, it's super sweet. Let's quickly talk about the vacuum system.
One is the coffee line, so that's where the coffee comes in to the carafe, and then the other one is actually the air line as part of the vacuum system, where we're sucking the air out, so that it's as if we're pulling the coffee in.
I see. Slide it back in.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is the new technology, man. That's sick. Look at that. Do you see that? It like goes around. So yeah, you brew coffee in this. You can just basically hot swap these. So I imagine like if you're a shop, you can buy one of these and you can pick up a ton of different carafes. So you could have like one carafe for each type of beverage. Like you could just have it all on tap, and I think that's pretty cool. Okay, finish brewing. Take it out. Go, and you throw it away. Also, by the way, is filtered. So you got lots of filtration. Let's brew some very ultra lightly roasted coffee, and I'll have Harry taste it. And we're brewing low dosage too. We're only brewing about 70 grams, which is definitely on the lower side. But Harry here, cameraman, wanted some really lovely hot brewed coffee, so we're doing that. Okay, let's see if we find the right recipe. If there's East African lower dose. Okay, great. There is in here East African 1200 mil. So already pre-built in, we got the templated recipes for different batch sizes, which is great. So we'll add in that 1200 into here, show on main screen, hit save, and we go back here. And now East African 1200 is here. So yeah. And we're gonna try to push this high extraction. So it's a 70 to 1200 with 1:17 ratio, which is sounds perfect for this coffee. And yeah, you guys have seen this many times. Well, I guess you guys haven't seen the new brewer do this, but this is just the hot brew recipe. So as you can see, is lower time, at least with this type of recipe, only 2 cycles instead of 3 cycles. There's gonna be a lot of agitation. To me, some of these 2-cycle recipes are like high clarity, high extraction, versus like the crazier 3 or even 4. I think I've seen like a 5-cycle recipe if you're really trying to make concentrate. So a little bit different there, but this is like gonna be that really good tasting batch brew. Oftentimes how I would characterize a lot of the ground control brews is it's like the maximum clarity that you can get out of a pour over. You get all those definitions of flavor notes, but you get a lot of that comfort from immersion. So you get like that nice body, that rounding. So it's both of those best properties kind of mixed together. Of course you can dial in however you want, but that's like generally speaking.
Well, actually, we used to actually get like 5L favorite because of the one that you
Yeah, this is done. What's been interesting is because I think the brew method is so forgiving, there's a very big sweet spot. So like a lot of these ground control brews, at least in playing around with some of these profiles and whenever I come over here, a lot of the flavor profile has like stylistically the same like big sweetness, good clarity, really just like everything is super balanced. It's also quite forgiving depending on grind size. So a lot of these recipes, you can just use the same grind size and and control everything through the manual agitation and the vacuum. So I got some of this here, this Prady light, ultra light roast Kenyan. Let's give it a taste. And there you go. As you see, the color here is much more normal because that just looks like good batch brew there. Wow. Hey Harry, you gotta taste this. This is smelling great. So that's a really cool thing is you can control, how dark you want this to be, how much extraction you want to be, how much TDS you want it to be, right? Because you have that range of making filter coffee like this, batch brew, all the way up to the concentrate. So the TDS control is what's kind of an interesting thing to think about. Yeah, wow. So much clarity, very, very good sweetness. It's just like, I'm not tasting any sort of like, oh, the brew is not mixed together and you're tasting like different gradients of the brew. It's all mixed together. Dude, this is great. I mean, I gotta get the cameraman some. It's always a treat to come by to Ground Control, but I'm gonna give this to Harry. But yeah, smells great.
Doesn't smell like tomatoes.
Big rounding, big sweetness, juice, acidity, even extraction, high extraction. Man, I want one of these at my house. I always like just showing off the new stuff. So the cold brew stuff is the new stuff, which has been, of course, new brewer, but like in terms of brewing, right, they're able to mix that hot and cold water together and you kind of get something like a nicely hot bloom cold brew effect. But the thing that I still like the most is the actual quality of batch brew. It is so good. Just the normal quality of batch brew that coming off of this thing is amazing. Yeah, I mean, what do you think? I think this tastes great.
I guess much more than regular batch brew.
Yeah. So like the challenge with regular batch brew that I find is that there are usually sacrifices that you have to make. You either make things maybe super, super sweet or super clarity driven. And you sacrifice somewhere in that body, or like you sacrifice something. It's very, very hard to get both this amount of body, but also the sweetness and still the definition of flavor notes. So, and I think that's just because of this brewing method here. Obviously, we're using great coffee here and we have really great recipes, but like that's the challenge that I have even at home when I'm brewing something like a pour over or brewing something like, AeroPress is I make sacrifices. This is like the one machine that I found where I can get the best of both worlds in a single cup. So it's pretty awesome. The thing that I've observed with how both the Cyclops and this new brew is it's actually an insanely forgiving brew method. Do you want to talk a little bit more about brewing?
Think of it as like, each brew is independent of the other one, but at the same time, it's like a waterfall effect. So you change the first cycle, that affects how the second cycle ends up, and then that affects how the third cycle ends up. So small iterative changes in each cycle can lead to significant changes in terms of the overall flavor profile. But at the same time, it is very forgiving in that, say your grinder's not working as well, it needs some, burrs swapped or whatnot, home use or commercial, it happens, but it's still going to give you that average ballpark of where you want your coffee to be.
I see.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, because I have put some egregiously old coffee through a ground control before, and it cleans up like some of that weirdness, some of that staleness in like old coffee. Not to say you should be using old coffee, but I've done it, and I've been quite surprised. So it's been interesting because it seems like I haven't really had a ground control cup before that has had like weird astringency or like there's just something that usually at the tail end of the brew and we'll get Ellie to talk more about this because he's probably tasted the most ground control cups out of all of us
for sure.
it is like usually some of that like off taste, off flavor, I get it at the tail end of something like I'm brewing at home, I messed up, I ground too fine, like I taste it at the end. But a lot of these ground control brews, like even in this cold brew that we're tasting, really clean up and round things out at the finish.
But yeah, no, I mean, if anything, because each brew we're arbitrarily cutting it short in time, right? Instead of like for drip, like, you're doing like a 4-minute brew or whatever, a continuous brew. We're breaking it up into, mini cycles. And it's really that mini cycle is really just targeting the early, more desirable flavor compounds each time we're brewing. So that way we're really not pulling out that which we don't want. So, but at the same time, we have full control over the flavor profile.
Right.
So we can re-add in any astringency or
like
even
if you
if
wanted
bitter's
more of
desirable,
that. Right.
you can.
How much experimentation did you go through to learn all like the coffee chemistry? Like, what did that look like?
Oh, it looked like a lot of reading, a lot of coffee tasting, a lot of, late nights, all that, It took Ellie and me about 2 years of, spending time in his kitchen and figuring things out, 10 cups a day, that sort of thing before we put the first unit out there. So, yeah, part of the fun. Like, yeah, our first units were built using custom glassware and some crazy contraptions.
I always just love showing off Ground Control because it's Bay Area, and one of the very unique things is you guys build everything here in
Very
the
much
Bay.
so.
That's very rare to actually build the machines and have a factory here. That's not easy. So to me, I'm like, I always got to show that off. But Josh is the chemistry guy. He did a lot of the tech and a lot of that. We'll have Ellie talk more about the taste, the flavors, and I just really like you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you can pre-order this machine now and see it in person at SCA Expo. I think this is very exciting, but otherwise, we'll wrap up now. If you guys have any questions, let us know. I'll definitely be swinging by Ground Control again in the near future, and then we'll also try to film a video at SCA Expo. So if you guys have any questions, we can go and film the video there. But otherwise, you can see Josh at Expo if you want to say hi to him. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for spending time to watch the video. And thanks Josh again for being part of this and showing off the new brewer. We have so much more to show off in the coming weeks. So cool.